If $1,200 a month is a good rent compared to Los Angeles, if you can't pay $1,200 a month, it's not a good rent, right? If you're on Social Security and you get $850 a month, then $1,200 is not going to help you. And a recent study showed that people, economists talk about quintiles, right? People in the bottom 20% spend 56% of their median rent, their rent on their income on rent, right? 56%. And they also say that most families need left over from rent about $1,400 a month to cover all the other, basics, right? And these families have $500. So families they're just in a hole. It's really, really hard for them to get out. And by the way, 15% of Pima County residents are severely housing burdened. That means 50% or more is going toward their rent, and about a third are paying more than 30%. So that's a lot of families who month to month are just short money and hitting crisis. And then before the pandemic, Tucson's affordability really started to shift. Even though we were a very affordable market, it started shifting. In fact, we were considered the highest in the world. Anyway, and so we've been tracking evictions, and actually our evictions are not higher right now than the actual evictions that happen are not higher than before the pandemic, but that's because we've been pushing out massive amounts of rent assistance, and I'll show you a slide on that. And we've been watching something called the Census Pulse Survey. We have a researcher at the Southwest Institute for Research on Women who's done a great job of helping us, because we've just been terrified that we're going to have this surge of homelessness. So we've been trying, and in the pandemic, it's so hard to know what's going on. It's like we're all living in a fog. We're all disconnected from each other. So we've been really trying to keep our eye on it. We've been working with the city of Tucson on a heat map. And I know that there's some wonderful work happening in 05. And so it won't surprise anybody that that's probably one of the hottest spots on the heat map for evictions. And I can send you the link to this if you want to play around with it. So let me tell you a bit about what the One Stop's been doing to address this crisis. So we have, it's estimated about 40,000 households that have applied for assistance. Many were housing burdened prior to the pandemic, and many, 41%, had previously experienced evictions. Right? So it's not a new experience. And once you have an eviction on your record, it's much harder to convince a landlord to. One of the things we did, and I think did well at the beginning of the pandemic, was say, we want to just have one door, one place for people to get rent assistance, because people were calling every agency in town. And we got a lot of money coming in. And so both the county and city, sure, come on up and I'll keep talking. We combined our resources and we created one door for people to go to. So it's, it reduced the stress for those tenants, right? So that they could know that they didn't have to, shop around town to get their help. We built in a regular tracking and a dashboard so people could go on and kind of see what's happening. We pushed out, I think on my site it says $41 million already. In a non-pandemic year, tenants could get 1 month rent a year. Now they can get up to 18 months, which is kind of wild. And we've had 1 or 2 people hit that threshold, most don't. But we could also pay 3 months forward. So the idea is we want to help families have a chance to get stable. And then we figured out ways to reduce the amount of paperwork. We use a neighborhood vulnerability map, and if people live in that, we don't have to get income information, because it was all about speed, right? And even now we have people who are waiting 2 to 3 months to get rent assistance. We had to hire up a lot of people, but we're one of in the top 10% in the country for pushing that rent assistance out the door. So we're pretty proud about that. And we made it so landlords can initiate an application, right? We wanted to build that partnership with them. And as I mentioned, we're doing well. And even with that, we still have a lot of need, and we need more speed and all of those things. We have a task force that meets every other week with about 40 people to kind of just keep our eye on this thing. And we have state. And so what I really want to tell you about today too is our new EELS program. And this is the program that I'm working with. It's It's an emergency eviction legal services program. So the first thing we can do is get tenants legal representation or legal counsel. Tenants rarely are represented. It's a very mystifying system going to court, so at least they can get some understanding of what's happening. But we know the majority of cases are for non-payment of rent, so the remedy is rent, right? So we have, and the unique thing we have are navigators. So our navigators talk to the tenants, try to connect them to legal services or rent assistance or job assistance, right? So I was talking at our table that, we want people to be able to pay their future rent. So one stop, where we have 4 one-stop centers, a youth, a vets, and 2 adult centers. So we're built to help you get a job. And we know there are employers out there desperate for employees, right? So we've had about almost 300 people that we've talked to, and we have about a 70% response rate. And this is new. In the rent assistance models we've had in the past, we just hand out the money. But now we're really trying to work with those individuals to see how we can stabilize them while we continue to kind of keep as much speed going as we can. And we have an outline of how it works. We have an embedded navigator with the justice court, so they're right there working with the judge and the system and the landlord's attorneys to try to get the rent assistance going. Randy mentioned the story about the grandma. So we are launching a project with Interfaith Community Services to specifically put a spotlight on those older adults, vulnerable adults, people on fixed incomes, because they are really getting hit hard. And we're very concerned, and there's often complicated situations where it's not just there's lack of family support, there's hoarding issues. And again, we're not built to do that. And this is where we're we'll do the transactional part, ICSU do the relational part. You send somebody in to have a cup of coffee, assess the situation, help figure out, what's going on. And then when all else fails, and I see Randy moving toward me, we have hotels set up as a safety net. So we have a navigator who works with the constables if someone is going to be made homeless, then we're going to put them in a hotel if it's a family or a vulnerable adult. And if not, then we're going to do everything we can to help them find housing. And so I just want to end by saying that I think there's great opportunity for partnership with the faith community. We really want to do that together. And while we look at safety net issues, because that's what we're talking about, people in crisis, I also know we want to think about cathedral thinking, right? How do we look into the future? How do we build a stronger, better, safer Tucson so that fewer people continue kind of fall through into these situations where there's extreme need? So please know that the door is wide open. Jennifer Ekstrom replaced Linda Leatherman in that role, and I'm there to also support you. So I'm excited to see what we can do together. And thank you, Randy. Appreciate that.
So Bonnie is wonderful, and the theme this year is celebrating it. And just think about $41 million if we didn't have that. What would happen in our community in terms of evictions, all these people being out on the street. Paul Parisi is up next for Tucson, and he's going to talk about some of the things that he's doing and Port Tucson is doing in terms of collaboration. So Paul, come on up.
Morning, everyone. Monday is my 10th anniversary at Fort Tucson serving in the government building. My mother told me, never talk religion or politics or you'll get into fights, okay? But we should always avoid fights, but God calls us to fight spiritual battles. And, oh, I'm sorry. Hey, God, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. God calls us to fight spiritual battles. And to do that, we have to be the salt and the light. We have to tell the truth with love, and we do it with the armor of God. I'm going to tell you a story of collaborating with government and churches and pastors and people of influence that started 10 years ago that carries on to this day. So you'll see me try to bridge this together because relationships, you want them to last. Okay. At our Fort Tucson staff, we're going through a new training program. We're using a book and it's called Who, Not How, because it's more important who you do things with than how you do it. And it takes collaboration to build those relationships. Now, my first week at Fort Tucson, there was a conference going on at Victory Worship Center, and we had an information table there. And the speaker was Kathy Harrod from Center for Arizona Policy. So I got to meet her. And then Cindy Buller, who was at Victory, was doing a group that was getting people involved in government. I said, wow, what an opportunity, what a door opened for me. So I just said, how can I help you? And she says, we want to start a Constitution class. I said, great, we'll do it. Well, how do you start a Constitution class on your first day at the job? Well, I got to meet the best Constitution and history teacher there is, maybe in the whole world. And that is a Christian educator named Claire Morgan. So we had our first Constitution class there at Victory. Now let me fast forward to this January. A group at Christ Community Church wanted to start a group that got involved with government. So I met with Pastor Brett Iman, and he says, great, let's call it the Salt and Light Committee. I said, that's wonderful, we'll get going. Well, the first thing I did was call Claire Morgan and say, we need you to teach biblical citizenship classes. We had 3 classes every week, once a week for 3 weeks. We had over 60 people attend to learn what it means to be Christians, to do our duty to God by using biblical principles to make a difference in government. We followed those classes by facilitating 8 first-rate video classes with historians Rick Green and David Barton of the Patriot Academy. We're going to get more into Patriot Academy. Pastor Juan's brother went through the Patriot Academy, and it's a life-changing experience. It's a 1-week boot camp for 16 to 25-year-olds to teach young adults to be legislators with Christian character. Now, Fort Tucson's relationship with the Patriot Academy goes back 10 years when through Claire Morgan again, I met a young couple, Juan and Laura Siscamani, and they had just gone through the Patriot Academy. At the time, the Patriot Academy was only in Austin, Texas at the Capitol there. And it was very small and had never gone anywhere from there. They had this vision to bring it to Arizona. Now, the story of Nehemiah, Nehemiah had got this vision from God to rebuild the wall in Jerusalem. The Jews were exiled in Babylon. He prayed and God just gave him favor. He asked the king of Persia for help. The king gave him permission, gave him provision. He overcame all sorts of obstacles, got the people together, gave them specific tasks. Here, rebuild the wall right in front of your house. Then they got the job done. So with Juan and Laura, we prayed, Lord, bless us like you did Nehemiah. And so my job was very simple. I just did one thing. I made 2 appointments at the Capitol. Okay, so we drive up there. First appointment was Senator Al Melvin. And we walk into the room and Juan starts talking, and the Holy Spirit literally was filling that room. And within moments, Senator Melvin knew exactly what Juan wanted to do. And he says, you have to talk to the state Senate President, Andy Biggs, who's now Congressman Andy Biggs. And there's a line of lobbyists and people down the hallway waiting to see the state Senate President. We just barge right past him, right into his office. And he looks like, what are you doing here? He goes, you have to listen to these people. I'm a talker, but I stayed quiet through the whole thing. My job was just to do the introduction. So I'm sitting back watching this happen, watching God's magic happen. Andy Biggs gets it. He says, this is wonderful. This is wonderful. Gets on the phone and he calls who I call the landlady of the Capitol. Okay. This lady, Melissa Taylor, her actual job is facilities manager. Okay. She comes up, you can't read her face at all. And one tells her, I need the Capitol for a week, the state Senate chambers, the meeting rooms, janitorial service, security. And she listens and she walks away. That was it. So the next meeting is with Kathy Harrod from Center of Arizona Policy, because I don't know Phoenix like she does. And so Juan says to her, we need a place for 30 students to stay. We need the janitor, we need staff to be able to stay there, probably 40, 50 people. And she goes, well, I'll ask around. And she leaves. So we said, what are we going to do now? So we're going back to the car and the phone rings. And it's Melissa Taylor, the facilities manager. She says, you have the Senate chambers for a week, the week you want. And this is April, okay? We wanted it in July. He says, you got the week in July. You got the meeting rooms, janitorial service, and security. One goes, wonderful. How much is it going to cost? She goes, it's free.
Oh, wow.
So we just literally got down on our knees and started praying, Lord, you've given us a miracle. How could this possibly happen? Government doesn't move this quick unless God himself moves it, okay? So we're getting up to go, and then the phone rings again. And it's Kathy Harrod. She says, I just spoke to Brian Mueller at Grand Canyon University, and you have the dorms for that week that you want. He goes, wonderful. How much is it going to cost? He goes, Brian Mueller is donating it to me. Okay. Well, the first Patriot Academy was that time there. And the first person, just can I have 1 minute? Okay. The first person that was brought up, that was a speaker at the Patriot Academy, was the treasurer of Arizona, which was Doug Ducey. Okay. Doug Ducey was so impressed by the Patriot Academy, and I'll fast it really quick. As soon as he got elected governor, he made Juan his senior advisor for regional and international affairs, a position he holds to this day. And that just opens up that door. And I'll end really quick because I know I'm getting the hook. Okay. Now, throughout history, pastors, churches have played a vital role in the establishment and preservation of religious and civil liberty. Being salt and light requires knowledge of the culture we're attempting to preserve and influence as we fulfill the Great Commission and make disciples of all nature. Being biblical citizens requires knowledge of biblical principles, how to apply them to the world around us. You and your church can be a catalyst to restoring biblical values in our city, church, and nation. And there's some flyers there for Claire Morgan's 4th of July camp. So your church can have a summer program to bring our future generations so they can keep the values we have. Thank you.
Paul is a wonderful man and does wonderful things and has millions of stories. Can you tell that? So He's probably worse than me, right? No. How many of you have seen Amazing Grace, the movie? You have to see it if you haven't seen it. So in this collaboration with government, we always think of Wilberforce as the main person. Wilberforce was not the main person. It was the Clapham group that actually facilitated that. He wouldn't have gotten into his position without them inviting him in. So when you watch it, you'll see a little thing, but we in America are individualistic. So Paul does the thing that engages, and unless you see the value of government and the value of the resources, which Paul is doing, you're not going to do this. And it's pastors. I mean, if you look at Clapham Group, Pat brought us all up to the Capitol a couple months ago, January 10th. So we have to have people that see the upside. We all see the downside of government. You don't have to say amen. But we see the downside, but you have to see the upside to appreciate it and understand our Constitution and our rights and what we can do with that. So Jennifer was supposed to be on video, but the video didn't quite work out. And this is a year of celebration. And one of the things, Jennifer has stepped in after Cherie Gray died and is doing Tucson Refugee Ministry. And so we think of the Afghans because that's the big thing, but now what's going on? Ukraine, huge, the most refugees in the history of the world, 10 million refugees. So she said she'd take them all into her home. So she's going to share some stories that she's already shared several times. So Jennifer Tompkins is the new executive director of Tucson Refugee Ministry.
I'm not sure how new. I've actually been in position for 2.5 years, but thank you. I love that we're talking about collaboration with government, and I love that you brought up Sweet Cherie, who worked so very hard in collaboration. She was amazing at doing that, and I got to step into a position where she already had laid so much groundwork for that. What she struggled with so much was actually connections with the resettlement agencies. The resettlement agencies are government-funded agencies here in Tucson. There were 3, there are now 4. 3 of the 4 resettlement agencies are faith-based, even though they're government-funded, and 1 was secular. And when we were looking at this crisis that was happening in Afghanistan, we went from resettlement happening, there was only in all of the United States, 9,000 people that had been resettled before Biden came in to be the president. And I'm not extremely political. You know, there's this checks and balances with how immigration works and, you know, how government works with immigration. But when Biden came in, he opened up the doors for resettlement again. And as he opened up those doors, the resettlement agencies had virtually been decimated. They didn't have the employees because they hadn't resettled very many. And I don't know if you know, but since 1981, we've resettled over 90,000 refugees in Arizona. It's estimated that we have over 10,000 here in Tucson remaining. They're not tracked as refugees after they have gotten their citizenship, which I want to talk to you a little bit more about citizenship classes. So we've got this population of refugees here. The problem is that if we aren't connected with the government agencies who resettle the refugees, we don't know who they are when they come in, and we can't connect with them and provide those really, really needed social services that they don't get from the resettlement agencies. We've been working on those collaborations. And IRC, which is the one resettlement agency that is not faith-based background, came to us and said, this crisis is happening with Afghanistan. We're going to be resettling so many new refugees. We need you to provide all of our volunteers. We said, great, we'd be happy to do that. Can you take away your faith statement so any volunteer can come in? No. Are you sure you can't take away that faith statement? I'm sorry. Are you sure? Because we really want other people to be able to get in. Can you take away the faith statement? No, we can't. Okay, you can still be get all of our volunteers. What happened is that each one of those resettlement agencies, all 4 of them came to us and said, you're going to be the sole source of all of our volunteers for refugees in Tucson. So as you're hearing in the news about what was happening at the hotels and then, you know, all the refugees coming in, we were able to be there to do lots of wonderful needed things, like social groups, being able to get people to actually talk after all of the trauma that they've been through, being able to meet each other, being able to have fun in space. We did play dates with kids so that they could actually feel like kids again. We helped with English classes, lots and lots of English classes, so that the refugees that came in could understand what was going on in the community around them. We helped them to be able to connect with their caseworkers. We helped with partnering agencies like the diaper bank to come in and be able to provide with practical needs. We also worked quite a bit with GAP to be able to help some of those practical needs to get going. We came in and we've been moving them into their apartments so that we know where they're going. But without that government collaboration, we would not know who they are or where they are to be able to continue to help them and be able to connect with them to thrive. And so we're really thankful that every single day, we've got all sorts of communication going with all 4 of those resettlement agencies. Now, as we were collaborating with those resettlement agencies, we also collaborate with DES, so the Office of Refugee Resettlement out of Phoenix. And what I will say is that in their meetings, they kind of do shout outs. They say, hey, you know, this group is doing this group is doing this. We've gotten shout outs in the last 2 meetings. We're the only faith-based group that is getting shout outs because we are the hands and feet that are there and we're loving on people practically. And that is the benefit of really being able to work with the government, is that they really see who we are as faith-based groups and that we're really serious and we really are there to love on people. We don't just the people that say what we're going to do. And also, I'm going to be collaborating with Bonnie to get a one-stop in our new community center. So I'm super excited about that.
So I know I'm the turd in the punch bowl today. Sorry, all of our speakers, you did a great job. We appreciate you, and I'm sorry for who I am this morning. Confession, we probably had to do communion. And then Dave will take an offering, right? So we're going to have questions for you at your table, I'm hoping. Yep. Yes, we've got them. So we're going to have you discuss these things at your table to begin with. And Jennifer, on the video that we were going to do, we had collaboration without compromise. Greg's here, and that was one of the first things he said in one of our meetings years and years and years ago. And Lisa also does a seminar on that. We have a tendency to apologize for our faith and play it down. We don't have to. If you look at transformation around the country, it is led by faith groups. The West has got its tail between its legs a little bit on some of these things, and we can be proud of our faith and that people will serve because of their relationship with Jesus Christ. So, amen? Amen. Okay. Questions? You can pick a facilitator at the table if you want to.